I'm Marilyn Ringo. Los Angeles is a subdued city this morning, but the danger of violence remains. A Pasadena police helicopter was reportedly fired upon while flying over a street disturbance in which one person was shot and killed. It's unclear if the bullets that hit the chopper came from the crowd. Thousands of federal Army troops and National Guardsmen are trying to restore order on city streets. President Bush has declared L.A. a disaster area, allowing federal funds to help repair the damage, estimated at $500 million. But as Greg Lamont reports, for the Korean community, that's small consolation.
Tears of sadness, bewilderment, and anger. He Lee and his wife Jade are two of the innocent victims of the riots. Their stereo and appliance store was heavily looted.
Everything is unfair. Why they shouldn't do this earlier, you know?
In the aftermath of devastating rioting, looting, and burning, Koreans think they were targeted for destruction. Of the estimated $500 million in damage, $200 million was sustained by Korean-owned businesses. Relations between many blacks and Korean business owners have long been strained.
They are part of the problem by not understanding the community. Once they understand the live and work with the community and with the black, then they understand what the black problems are.
They don't even say hi, they just look at you. And so once you see that, you just don't even care about them or nothing.
Earlier this year, a boiling point was reached when a Korean grocer was given no jail time after killing a black teenager following a misunderstanding over a bottle of orange juice. And when the latest rioting began, some blacks said it was their chance to get even.
I know people were talking about it, and they were like, we're taking out those businesses, especially the ones who were rude.
During the height of the rioting, Koreans tried desperately to save their businesses. Many sat on their rooftops, armed with guns. Some were arrested for firing their weapons. In an effort to diffuse the tension, a peace rally was held by the Korean community that was attended by thousands.
I've come here as a part of the Korean American community to make sure that none of this ever happens again.
The message was plain and simple: stop the violence. The entire city is saddened by the violence and very confused.
I have no idea. I don't know what to do. It's been how many years, you know? We built it up, and then just one day, and it's gone.
Greg Lamont, CNN, Los Angeles.
Los Angeles Mayor Tom Bradley has appointed former baseball commissioner Peter Uberoth to head to the Rebuild L.A. cleanup project. Uberoth plans to solicit international investment in the inner city, including from Japan. He says he'll only accept the job if he can bring together business and community leaders in his attempt to repair the damage.
I accepted this position with one giant if. And all three of these leaders with me at the podium understand. I've told them personally, eyeball to eyeball, I have an if. Because I won't do this job unless the if is fulfilled. And the if is commitment from a few groups of people. Doesn't make sense to do this job. Nobody should embark on it unless you get commitment from the communities. African Americans, Latinos, Asians, and Anglos that have been seriously affected, and those in the communities around them. Unless the communities want to come together and want to solve problems and will commit to that, the religious leaders, the community leaders, I'm not going to go forward, and I don't think anybody in their right mind would.
Only a dozen people were arraigned yesterday on charges during the 3 days of violence. Police made more than 6,000 arrests during the riots, which killed 44 and injured more than 2,000. Relative calm also has returned to San Francisco, and officials have lifted the curfew on the city. About 250 demonstrators held a peaceful protest yesterday against the not guilty verdict in the Rodney King trial. In New York, demonstrators burned an American flag to protest the acquittals of the 4 police officers.
No peace! No justice! No justice!
Black activist the Reverend Al Sharpton led the rally of more than 400 demonstrators yesterday. Police report no arrests nor incidents during the demonstration. President Bush says he'll do anything necessary to stop the violence in Los Angeles, but his decision to send in federal troops is drawing criticism. Senior Pentagon officials say they're surprised because the situation is apparently improving. California Congressmember Maxine Waters says Mr. Bush is sending in the troops for an election year image to show he's tough. She represents South Central Los Angeles, the area hardest hit by the violence. Republican presidential challenger Patrick Buchanan says the focus on the violence is misdirected.
What we are getting is a lot of condoning of it, a lot of excuses for it, a lot of explanations for it. Even on the part of the President of the United States, there was not enough condemnation and denunciation and a sense of sympathy and understanding for the people in South Los Angeles whose homes were burnt out, whose shops were destroyed, and who saw friends lynched right on the streets there. Now, these are the innocent victims of the violence in Los Angeles.
Democratic presidential contender Bill Clinton will visit Los Angeles today. He blames the violence on Bush administration policies. He says the U.S. needs to take a new approach to urban troubles. Now that the City of Angels is settling down, people are asking, was the violence justified? And was the King verdict fair? Eric Gershon reports on the results of a CNN poll.
The day after the first outbreaks of violence in Los Angeles, a CNN Time magazine poll asked 1,100 Americans if the violence was justified. The response from both blacks and whites was overwhelming. 77% of whites answering the poll feel the violence is unjustified. That's almost 4 times as many as those who feel some justification. The numbers are a little closer among blacks who were questioned, but the numbers are still at least 2 to 1 against any justification for the violence. The poll shows that a majority of those questioned disagree with the verdict in the case of 4 Los Angeles police officers. But when the question is changed to which angers you more, the verdict or the violence, the responses start to split along racial lines.
Makes me angrier. I don't know if you can really distinguish the two.
It's probably the riot after. The verdict doesn't have anything to do with this.
When asked if the races are treated equally in U.S. courts, more than a quarter of whites say yes, but only 5% of blacks agree, and that number is smaller than the poll's margin of error. 84% of blacks in the poll feel the courts favor whites over blacks. That's almost double the number of whites who feel that way. This poll, conducted by Yankelovich, Clancy, and Schulman, asked questions of 200 black adults and 798 white adults. The responses show both whites and blacks believe race played a role in the verdict handed down Wednesday. The issue of race is confronted by 2 questions dealing with perception. Whites were asked, which of these descriptions applies to blacks more than whites? 46% of whites feel blacks are always whining about racism, but only a third would say that blacks are more likely to commit violent crimes. When the question is changed to how black Americans feel whites view them, the numbers take a large jump. Remember that these figures mean 70% of the blacks questioned feel whites believe that blacks are whining about racism, and that the black perception is whites would say a black person is 75% more likely to commit a violent crime. Eric Gershon, CNN reporting.
The Justice Department has cleared drug policy advisor Bob Martinez of violating federal election laws. Martinez donated nearly $62,000 to Florida's Republican Party in 1990 during his failed campaign to be re-elected governor. Contributions to federal candidates are limited to $1,000 per election, but the FBI says there was an absence of criminal intent in Martinez's actions. 2 weeks of abortion protests